You're listening to Hofstra's Morning Wake Up Call here with Gary Duff on 88.7 FM. To get into the spring spirit, we're joined by gardening expert and host of ehow.com, gardenguides.com, and about.com, who has produced thousands of gardening and living videos. She's been nicknamed the Diva of Gardening with over 3 million views on YouTube. Yolanda Vanveen joins us from Oregon to talk about the new season. Yolanda, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Gary. Thanks for calling.
So my first question is, how did you get into gardening? What made you do that?
Well, I grew up on a nursery. My family's always grown flowers. My family's from Holland, and we grew Christmas trees and cut flowers. And then it's just gone on from there. I sold flower bulbs for 20 years, and then I just started making videos for my website, and it just kind of grew from there.
So the saying goes, spring cleaning, how does that transcend into the garden?
Well, it's just like your home. I think, we've been cooped up all winter long, and it's just time to clean up everything and declutter. So my main goal is it's pretty simple. It's just going out, and there's still leaves in my garden, and there's sticks that have fallen from the trees, and if there's anything that's brown, I cut it out. If it's green, I leave it there pretty much. That's my policy. And I try to pull out all the largest weeds, but at the same time, I've just found by putting a layer of compost over everything, it makes it really simple. It only takes a few hours on a nice sunny afternoon, and it just feels like you're ready for spring. I love it.
So what are the most popular flowers and plants to get into the spring season?
Well, I think a good garden is a combination, just like your friends. You want people and plants in your garden to represent the world, and you want a combination. So I'm about putting herbs with vegetables and flowers and mixing it all up. So in the springtime, herbs are wonderful. Any type of spring vegetable seeds. So you want the cold weather varieties like lettuces and carrots and things like that, rhubarb, and things that you can start in the spring. And then there's always flower bulbs that bloom in the summer. You've got the lilies and all types of crocosmias, and there's thousands of varieties of bulbs that you should plant in the spring. Dahlias are a good thing. And then just by mixing it all up, grasses and shrubs, and you'll find you'll have a beautiful garden. It's kind of nice to make a little plan. In spring, it's great. We try to put the larger items in the back and the smaller items in the front. But whatever looks good to you, whatever you buy at the supermarket, just turn around and plant it. That's my theory.
Now, are there better plants for the house than outside? Are there differences?
Well, there's a big difference because if you live in a cold climate, I'm in the Northwest, you're in New York, it's very cold there in the winter. So any tropical plants, if you leave them outside, they're not going to be alive in the spring because a lot of tropical plants can't freeze. So an easy way to figure out what to do with your plants is find out where they're native. If they're from a very, very warm climate, odds are they're not going to make it over the winter, so you bring them inside for the winter and let them winter over, whether you keep them alive inside or just let them go dormant. But when it comes to houseplants are just tropical plants from other areas that we keep indoors. And I always try to remember and embrace all the plants that can grow inside. You can put herbs in a windowsill any time of year. You can grow things year-round.
What are some of the things we should know before buying a plant or a flower?
Well, I always do my research, make sure it's not invasive. Every state has, and I know New York will as well, if you just look online at New York invasive plant list, it's called a red list, usually for each state. And if a plant is invasive, that means it's going to take over your garden and it might compete with some of the native species. So I always say, first, don't plant invasive. Second, look into the natives. Look into the plants that are native to your area because they're going to grow well. They're originally from your area. And then also look for plants that are from areas similar to your area that they're native because they're going to do well. And then just do a little research. And the easiest thing you can do is go to a friend's garden or go to a public park or a botanical garden and just take notes of what's survived for the last 10 years and looks good to you, and you'll know that they'll survive in your garden as well.
What are some helpful tips to use when gardening?
Don't take it too seriously. And it's like inviting a bunch of friends over. If they don't show up every year, don't take it personally. And remember, everything that you do is going to affect not just the plants, but the birds and the bugs and the animals in your garden. So always try to garden naturally. There's lots of natural alternatives to chemicals. There are instances where, there might not, like I had crane fly, and the only way to get rid of that I found was with chemicals. So, but do your research. If you can find a more natural solution, then that's where it should go. But at the same time, just make it fun. If it looks good and you know that it's not invasive and it looks good in your neighbor's yard, then why not put it in your yard?
How do we keep the lawn green?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me this question because it's what's happening now is a lot of the states are making it illegal for a lot of the different chemical companies to sell the phosphorus. Now, what we've done is, we just keep putting all these chemicals that are going to make it green. But if you remember, nature's already figured it out. Naturally the leaves fall and they make compost, and then the grass will come through that. But you just don't want to put leaves on your garden either. So what I like to do is I always say reseed, 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 and only do it in the spring and the fall. So any spot that's got moss or weeds in it, you can try to pull out the weeds or remove the moss, but if you just rake it up and clean it up, put a little layer of compost over everything, or just any kind of good soil, and then just put lots of grass seed over that. Every spring, every fall, do this. Don't do it in the summer or the winter because it's not going to do anything. And you will find within a couple of years your garden is just going to be lush and green, a lot greener than just putting chemicals on moss. That doesn't fix the problem. You've got to reseed. If you're going to have a lawn, and better yet, make raised beds and grow vegetables and fruits and flowers and a combination, like we say. Leave the lawn for the kids to play. You got to have a place for the kids to play. But at the same time, you can always use some areas for some other types of gardens as well.
You're listening to Hofstra's Morning Wake Up Call here with Gary Duff on 88.7 FM. We're joined by gardening expert Yolanda Vanveen. So now you mentioned the weeds and raking some of those weeds out. Should we use chemicals and whatnot to get rid of weeds, or?
Well, chemicals are the last resort. There's even things like vinegar you can put on weeds and it will kill it, but at the same time, even natural materials are not always that wonderful for the environment, because if you put a lot of vinegar in a pond, it's going to kill everything. So you got to be careful. You got to be responsible at all times. So, but my theory is by having other plants that compete with the weeds, then you wouldn't have to get rid of the weeds. So if you're reseeding, the reseeded grass is going to take over the weeds. If you've got a garden bed, if you fill it with all types of flowers and herbs and plants that are blooming constantly, spring through fall, and I leave leaves over a lot of my beds over the winter, so that keeps the weeds down. And then I just pull those up and put a little layer of compost and keep planting more. And I found I really have not needed to use any herbicides. So my theory is just keep doing your research and try to find alternatives. And I have some weeds in my gravel area. I have a large gravel area, and I'm to the point I'm probably going to put a little bit of very minute level of chemicals on it to get rid of those, because I haven't found other solutions. So, I'm just trying to be very responsible. At the same time, I realize, farmers and there's other people that, they're trying. We're all trying to go natural, but it's going to take time till we figure out how to do it.
Now, what should we watch for in making sure our plants are healthy? How often should we water them and whatnot?
Well, I always say gardening's like throwing a party. You can be a host that's just, pawning off alcohol on everybody, and you need to have a bunch of people that are really obnoxious and pushing each other around. Mm-hmm. Or you can kind of just, make sure they're watered when they look a little wilty. They'll come right back. And I'm a big proponent of soaking everything. If you just leave the hose going for a couple hours once or twice a week, you don't really need to water much more than that because the beds are soaked. Misting really doesn't do it. You got to soak the beds. And plants love to be wet, really wet, and dry out, just like nature would do for them. So always try to water them, naturally as well. And I think I just kind of am in tune with my plants. If they look wilty, I soak them. When they're, wait till they look wilty and I soak them again. It's not that easy.
Let's say I go to the store and whatnot, and I'm looking to buy some things to start up my garden. What are the first things that should be on my list?
Things that you buy at the grocery store and you spend money on.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way you can save money right there. Grow your own lettuce, tomatoes, carrots, herbs, garlic is so easy to grow, chives, all types of herbs, because that'll get you cooking too, because I know I love my rosemary and all my different types of herbs that you can use, just going out in the garden. And then I always say whatever reminds you of your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got lily of the valley or lilies or procosmias or different types of Meyer lemon that your grandma had, that kind of thing. And just make it special. That's what I always say, so that you like what you have. And I just try to do my research a little bit too. You know, a lot of times garden centers won't tell you if it's invasive, you know, or they don't even know it's considered invasive. So I always try to figure out what's native and look around and just ask friends, go online. There's so much information out there.
Now, where can we go to learn more about some of the things that you do?
Well, I'm on Facebook under Yolanda Vanveen, and I post lots and lots of information. And I've also started a Garden Naturally group on Facebook, and I have almost 5,000 members now in just a little bit of time. So it's a really big, hot topic, and everyone wants to try to learn. And my advice is not to take it too personally. And if you can just do one thing, just to, you know, use one less chemical, then you've made the world a better place. So, and I'm also on Twitter under Yolanda Vanveen, or you can Google or go to WRHU'S and put in Yolanda Vanveen, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of links to the videos because now they've been picked up by other websites. So it's huge. It's all over the world. I've got people from, you know, islands in Fiji watching my videos and finding me on Facebook. I just love every second of it. It's really enjoyable for me.
Yolanda Vanveen, Master Gardener, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really enjoy your different posts, too, and thanks for being my friend.